All right, welcome back, EL 140 Residential. Mr. Sanchez here, West Covina. We're starting with Unit 4, Meeting 2. Objective today is ceiling fan, the layout, the wire installation, the install of a ceiling fan. I gave a couple of examples here on the board. The first, down here, this is normally what we would do in the field, obviously. We got a ceiling fan switch. It's a button activated, so there's one button for the light, there's one button for the fan, and you got the speeds and the dimming ability. Normally those switches are anywhere close to about $100, okay? So obviously, when it's coming to the customer, they're gonna want something that's a little bit more decorative, and it operates the ceiling fan, whether you have a pull chain ceiling fan like the ones we utilize, or you had a remote one that they purchased. Whatever the case is, most customers do want that integrated system into their switching mechanism along their wall. Here in the lab, obviously we don't have those switches available to us as far as the fan switches, but we could still get the job done with 2 single pole switches in a 2-gang box. You can see here I wired 2 single poles in a 2-gang box. I got the incoming hot coming in, splice, one going to the first switch, my jumper going over to the second switch. I got my switch legs coming out of the first switch, going to the fan to operate the fan motor. I got the second switch operating the light portion and heading out the second single pole switch. Another option is a lot of times in most houses, like especially older houses, we don't have a 2-gang box already implemented in the wall. And let's just say somebody's on a budget and they can't afford that $100 switch. Well, we got the stackable toggle single pole switches that basically flip horizontally instead of upward and downwards. It's built in a single gang configuration, and I can still operate here with a common coming in with the power, and one switching mechanism going to the fan, and the second switching mechanism going to the light. It's that simple, guys. This is just one of those simple, everyday residential applications that an apprentice entry level is going to have to do. One of the key things that I point out to them is, especially with the onset of materials, as we walk over to the unit where we have one display, we all know that the materials nowadays are not of the highest quality sometimes, and that goes to the screws and the threading mechanisms within the devices themselves. And I always illustrate it and make it a point. They have to be very careful with the threading, not to cross thread, not to strip the screws. The manufacturers of these devices only give you one set typically. They might give you one extra screw. So, and it's very easy to strip or cross thread a screw into one of these fan mechanisms. Well, that's it. If it's a loose component, that fan is not going to operate in a balanced mode. It's going to get out of alignment. It's going to become imbalanced, and therefore the installation is void. You're gonna have to take it all back down after the customer calls you, where it's become imbalanced. So those kind of key details that we've encountered, or we see that other people make those mistakes in the field, it's kind of important that we point that out to them, because for the most part, they don't have the hand and eye coordination to get those screws in there even and flush as they're threading them in by hand first, and hopefully not using drills to do that, right? So here we got a pull chain model, both with the light and the fan. I've already had them pre-pulled to the highest level, so that when we come over here to our single pole switching, it's going to turn on the light to the highest level, and it's also going to turn the fan onto its highest speed. So we're going to go ahead and energize this circuit, again utilizing your PPE, making sure that you observed and taken an inspection look at the work to make sure that there's no short circuits, no ground faults, loose connections, loose wire nets. I'm gonna go ahead and energize this circuit breaker. I always try to maintain that sense of instruction every time we do something, even as simple as flipping on a circuit breaker, and I'll tell them, use that knuckle, use that thumb, support the breaker, flip the circuit toggle. We should have power to the motor. As you can see, it's spinning now. And we have light. Both independently operating, you know, which is a convenient thing, because some days in those hot summer days, you don't want the light on, you want the fan on. But you have the option here. And it's a simple, cheap option with a single pole switch for that person that's on that tight budget, for example. So just make sure you're illustrating to them on another couple of facts that we commonly deal with ceiling fan installations, that the manufacturer provides good leads that are probably maybe sometimes like 6 feet long in some cases. The wire leads coming out of the fan and the light are at least 6 feet long, sometimes for those high ceiling installs, and how they can buy the adapter extension poles to bring down that ceiling fan closer to the ground level instead of keeping it up there on that high ceiling, vaulted ceiling. And that's why those conductors are so long. I've had students in the past go ahead, they're like, why do we need all this wire? And they just go ahead and cut it. Well, you got to explain to them what's the purpose in that. All the small details, we got to go back to the basics. Again, making sure that they practice simple safety procedures, turning off their load after they tested it, turning off the breaker, working backwards, then turning off the disconnect. Showing them that, you know, we're gonna eliminate and minimize any kind of arc flash from a circuit or a load that's still on drawing power when the circuit breaker is being disconnected and or the disconnect. We want to make sure that they understand that it's better to turn those switches off when your loads are de-energized. So simple things like that, offer them some background experience that we learned, that sometimes you can get an arc when you got loads drawing while you're still trying to activate the switch. See you next time, fellas.